Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Chamber Within. Today, I'm ready to share something I needed some time to think on before doing so, and that is one of my odd metaphysical or energetic experiences that occurred during the pandemic. So, early on in my podcast episodes, I shared my experiences with energies or the visions I've had during my meditations. There are many other experiences that I have had that I will share as I can unpack them, like the one I'd like to share today. Two to be exact. Now, one of them is that when I was learning how to still my mind, I would find myself hearing different frequencies as I was drifting off into sleep. Now, this wasn't while I was in meditation, this was later on in the day and into the night, right? So I already had meditated for the day. This is just me ending my day, trying to go to sleep. Um, and I'm not sure what state to call it, but it's the moment right before I would become completely unconscious, that in between state. It is then when I can hear what can be described as like a radio dial being turned from one station to another. It's an uncomfortable high pitch, and it would wake me up every single time. I would come out of that really calm state um, where I was just about to drift off, and I didn't like it at all. It's very high pitched, and it would change, and it would be uncomfortable, right? So I'm finding myself in my room in the dark, and I would react by wincing or grabbing my ear in reaction to it. Now, knowing that there's no sound outside of me, but it was internal or just metaphysical is, I guess, the better word. But again, it would only happen when I was completely relaxed at the end of my day. And it's a lot like that state where I would receive messages from my guides, or like the night I saw the ball of light in my room. I was completely relaxed. And in that relaxed state, I just am a big receiver, and it's uncomfortable. It's like being a radio or a tuning fork. It was, again, it was very uncomfortable station to be on as a radio, as a walking, living, breathing radio, as we all are, really. And I just wanted to sleep. I didn't like being that sensitive to frequency, and it went on for a while, but eventually it stopped. But during that time, the second part of the um, experience that I wanted to share is that I had also experienced seeing another entity in my room. And to me, they have always manifested as geometric shapes, which was few and far between. It doesn't happen very often. Not like people, which is the only way to describe another being or person normally, but these energies show up as shapes. Like with my higher self, it was a circle over a triangle, like I said, like a female shape. This shape in particular was like a circle and a square, one stacked on top of the other. I remember drawing it the next day so I can keep track of this memory, and I have yet to find it. So I can't say for certain if it was the square over the circle or the circle over the square. Um, I think it's the square over the circle because it was really weird to me. And like, what is that? Now, my eyes were closed, but I could still perceive it. And it was to the right side of my bed, and it was hovering above it. And when I noticed it, it noticed me simultaneously and said, and I quote, "Oh, mm," and tried to get into my auric field, my space, if you will, which was in and around my bed, the bed that I was lying on trying to sleep. So here's the good news. I enjoy Robert Monroe's books about his out of body experiences, and it's because it's the closest thing anyone has ever written or I have read to what I have experienced personally. He had the curiosity to explore and do more, and also resources to kind of do sleep studies. If you've ever read his books, they're really fascinating for me, especially because I just have experiences of me coming back into my body, but I do not remember what I have done overnight or anything like that. Like he really put a lot of energy into exploring that aspect of his being, his astral body. But anyway, I bring him up because he said in the astral plane, we can choose to share or close off our space, meaning allowing an entity to join us or not. Now, this knowledge came to me before this uncomfortable night. And so, with all of my reading and my meditation and application, and like the integration of all these things coming at me at once, what I did was I wished this entity well. I gave it love, and then I said, no, no. And I physically turned over onto my left side, which would have given it my entire back, not knowing what was going to happen afterwards. But you know what happened then? Nothing. It went away. It went away. Now, here's the truth of all this. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I was sure that I was safe and within my autonomy. I don't have to share my space, and so I did not. The horror movies will have you believe that you are powerless, but you and I are not. Not that this entity was negative or necessarily positive, but it was uninvited. Like the title of one of my favorite Alanis Morissette songs. Like anyone would be, I'm flattered by your fascination with me. I love that song. But it's a lot like that. But back to the entity, because I feel like I went over that really quickly. And I just want to give a couple more details to that experience in all seriousness. It was a geometric shape, like I said, but without any particular color. Like kind of dark, or like a dark gray or black even. It wasn't colorful at all. The only colorful thing I've ever seen with my eyes open was that ball of light. This was just a grayish, darkish, non-intimidating, and not necessarily positive entity. Now, its voice sounded oddly loud, like it was speaking through a microphone. Not robotic, but like a person's voice through an amplifying type of apparatus. It sounded curious and then comfortable to join me. It wanted to be in my field. I believed it noticed that I noticed it, and then wanted to share in what was in my field, like wanted to be with me. It's not unlike having a visitor at your home who, one, wasn't invited, and two, really likes your space. And the old me probably not only would have been creeped out by this, but also would have ran out of the room. Actually, I know for sure I would have run out of the room, because this reminds me, and this is a bonus, because now this is like the third experience I've had, but I don't think I talked about this yet, but when I was 12, I remember laying in bed one night being so worried about a test I had the next day. I was in seventh grade, and it was a math test. I grew up in New York, so it was not new math. It it escapes me what I'm trying to say. Oh, logic. It was like logic or something like that, but not the logic that you and I know. It was just weird. If you grew up in New York around the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. But that's not the point. Let me get to it. Okay. So I was laying in the dark trying to fall asleep because I was so afraid. So I tried to rest my nerves by just becoming unconscious. If I just go to sleep, I can just let this go. I was so afraid that I was physically shaking. And, my dad was serious about my grades, so I didn't want to get into trouble and all these things, all these unnecessary worries I was having as a child. I was in seventh freaking grade. But anyway, all of a sudden, I felt hands on my back touch me very lightly, and a whisper in my ear, and it went, shh, as to calm my nerves in the most comforting, loving tone. but I was 12 and I knew that no one was in the room with me. So I yelled and I ran out of my room to tell my parents what happened. Like I was freaked out. And as an adult, I would like someone to and lovingly place their hands on my back. Because I'm like, oh, maybe it's an angel or whatever. I would tell myself that now with my spiritual awakening. But then, heck no. I ran so fast. And after I told my parents, they didn't believe me. And my mother suggested that I read a passage from the Bible, like to calm my nerves. And then eventually I went back to my room. So, in a word, my experience, I experienced growth. I stayed in my room with that being like, oh, like nice to be around me. And I just like, no, thank you. I had the awareness to say, my body is my own, my auric field is my own, and I don't want to share it. You know, uh, Robert Monroe was talking about how you'll meet other entities in the astral plane and you can be in each other's space and it feels really divine and beautiful and you can share information back and forth about your experiences as life forms in the physical realm. Or you can just simply be like, no thanks. And for me to get over fear, the first thing I went to was giving that entity love. Because it's the opposite of fear. It's like, I don't know who you are. I don't want to do this. And to not feed into that, the strongest feeling that I've ever felt was love. And so I gave love to that being, that entity, and I just said no. And that's my experience. Maybe other people have had something more than that, or maybe I could have entertained it. I just didn't feel like it. Like I said, it was uninvited. So when I was 12, I had very loving hands and I ran from it. And then this entity was just very neutral. And I was just like, no thanks. But anyway, I share my experiences in hopes of finding others like me. I can't bring this up in everyday conversation without receiving an uncomfortable stare looking back at me or potentially being written off as crazy. So I come here in hopes to inspire others to speak up about their own experiences, like I've said uh, plenty of times before. But I'm also here to share lessons that I've learned to integrate into my physical life. It's a way to ground myself from experiences that are not physical, right? And like to bridge the gap. Um, because this physical life can be stressful and painful at times. And I feel like there are keys, I guess, as a way to explain, a key to get through things somewhat easier. Not necessarily to say it's easy to do, but an easier way to deal. I've actually been entertaining a mindfulness certification because really the most exciting thing about that is that it includes having to do a 7-day retreat in complete silence. I don't just want to be around shysters, though, who are trying to get over on people. And a part of me thinks that the certification isn't necessary because there's gifts for everyone. And I don't need to, um, I guess, learn or study something I've experienced already. And it's just my way of chasing a worldly piece of paper that's just going to say, hey, you know, I'm now official. I'm official already, but it's the closest I'll get to being a Shangri-La, in a Shangri-La mystic temple amongst others like me. Like, that's my wish. And I'd love to compare notes. I don't know, like X-Men University or whatever it's called. I'm not really well versed in X-Men terms, so don't roast me. But there's still things I haven't put words to yet because I cannot fully understand why I experienced them or how that particular event may be useful in my day-to-day life. But I am continuing my search for a safe space to be fully me. And I feel like that day is not too far off. Maybe I'm already doing it, but I do have immense hope. Thank you so much for listening, as always. As you know, you can email me your questions, comments, or concerns at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com. If you'd like to be anonymous with your question, that is fine. Or if you'd like for me to use your name in a future episode where I go over questions, comments, and concerns and have a more engaging conversation with you, please feel free. Thank you again for your time and have a wonderful week. Bye bye.